Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Vega. I'm responsible for the sales team for the manufacturing industry for our Revenue Cloud products here at Salesforce. So first, I'd like to just thank everybody for joining today. I think we have a really good webinar lined up for you. Today, we're going to hear from Ashut Jaju, who is our SVP and GM of Manufacturing here at Salesforce, from Chris Schutz, the CEO of Logik IO, and also from Dan Krantz. Dan's the CIO of Keysight Technologies, and we'll be talking about our case study today. So we're here, and we want to talk about today, we'll talk about how customers with sophisticated product configurations and growing service offerings are turning to Salesforce and Logik IO to deliver consumer-grade experiences across all selling channels. We'll start by hearing from Ashut on Salesforce's investment in the manufacturing vertical and his team's focus areas. Then we'll hear from Chris Schutz, the CEO of Logik, about how and why he developed the Logik solution and his vision for the future of configuration and transactions. And then we'll turn it over to Dan. Dan today is going to talk to us about Keysight Technologies and discuss how his company is using Logik and Salesforce to transform Keysight's business to an as-a-service business and his need to create more efficient selling experiences for his customers and employees. So we're really excited about the opportunity to speak with you today. And at this point, I am going to turn it over to Ashut to get us started. Ashut?
Thank you, Bill. Really appreciate it. Thanks for the introductions. Hello, everyone. I wanted to take the next 5 to 7 minutes just explaining why this is important to us from a Salesforce perspective, how we think about commercial operations, and overall the vision for manufacturing, so that you get the context, and really thankful to both Chris and Dan also for joining the webinar and talking about how our partner solutions like Logik IO and also how customers like Keysight are using the platform to modernize their commercial operations. So just at a very high level, if I have to sit back and kind of put context, when it comes to Salesforce in the manufacturing industry, our product and industry strategy is focused on the 4+1 pillars as they are laid out here in terms of how we think about the industry. The first is essentially kind of helping you modernize your commercial operations. So we want to essentially make sure that as far as your sales, your revenue side of the business, your chief revenue officer's main kind of goals as they look into transforming their sales side of the business, Salesforce is the destination platform where they basically can run their business from, whether it's net new business, your run rate business, what business do they forecast as far as what are they going to win, and essentially leading to all the kind of what I would call prospect to cash processes, right? So that's the number one area of focus. The second is, as we all know, manufacturers, you go through a wide distribution or slash partner ecosystem. So we want to make sure all of the work that you do and provide from an internal employee's perspective is also available to this vast ecosystem of partners and distributors so that you can drive efficiencies through your channels and essentially differentiate through your channel ecosystem to drive business forward for you. The third is around the area of service and service experiences. So we want to make sure all of the service experiences that you want to deliver to your customers, whether it's through connected products, sending you the data in to drive customer interaction, or it's people calling into your call center or through self-service channels, or when you have to send that field technician into this field to solve customers' gnarly issues. We want to make sure that you deliver that impeccable one-stop shop service experience to your customers and differentiate your offerings. The fourth area is kind of very emerging and interesting for us, especially kind of as we look into the future of how work gets done. We want to make sure the new models of engagement, especially with the acquisition of Slack, we want to ensure that Slack is integrated as that engagement platform in the workflow automation of your employees, right? So not only your employees, but also your suppliers and your partner ecosystem. We truly believe as we look into the future of developing our products, Slack will become an integral part of that engagement layer as we embed that into the workflows of the Salesforce platform. And then finally, you do not lack data. Data is there all over in your organizations. Through MuleSoft and integration technologies there, we want to make sure data is presented so that you can continue to enhance your digital experiences. But then on top of that, with whether it's CRM analytics or Tableau, provide you the insights on that data and your processes so that you can drive your business forward. So that's kind of in a very quick fashion. I just wanted to lay out the focus of our strategy and how we are thinking about products and solutions as we develop them for the manufacturing industry. So as I said, today we are talking about modernizing commercial operations. And why is this an important area? And why is it so difficult? I think many of you who are in the audience will clearly kind of see this. Literally, when we sit back and kind of talk to our customers, one of the things we hear all the time from them is, while CRM provides a great view into what's going on in the pipe in account management, as soon as the sales rep or the salespeople who support the sales operations, when they get outside of that, the processes in the middle office, as we call them, are very, very complicated and cumbersome. And they are dependent on many different kind of systems, which make it very difficult. So it's lack of like having the right coding tools or configuration tools or forecasting your orders. All of this, it requires multiple different systems, which you have to bring it in all together. Our view is with Salesforce, we can bring these siloed systems and fragmented processes onto the same platform and really enable you to kind of deliver a complete commercial operations solution, whether it's modernizing your selling processes with not only your CRM, but also intelligent guided coding, configuration capabilities, pricing execution, understanding what your account managers need to deliver in terms of revenue, but then also looking at your end-to-end long-term agreements, volume agreements that you have, forecasting against all of the book of the business, integrating into your ERP and back office data to understand what orders are coming against those agreements and other things, but also bringing rebates and incentives as you're offering them to your channel partners and also to your customers becomes a very important part of the process. And then, as I said earlier, this cannot be just integrating these processes, but also extending them out and also bringing in the back office data. So how do you really extend this out to your partner ecosystem, integrate this to your back office data, but then also analyze and take action on all of the data becomes important. Now, you must be wondering, how do we essentially deliver all of these things, right? So it's very simple in my mind and my product team's mind. We think about this in three different layers. One is obviously the CRM platform that you all used to, which is the Sales and Service Cloud capabilities that you have all come to appreciate and love from Salesforce. But then on top of that, we build these industry-specific products. 3 years ago, we launched a product called Manufacturing Cloud, which essentially built on manufacturing-specific CRM or back-office processes. The third is taking advantage of some of the capabilities that we have from other clouds, like Revenue Cloud that Bill was alluding to. Then we look at all of these from a Salesforce perspective and say, okay, what can we do and what can we not do? So we have a very clear understanding that not everything will be done by Salesforce because we have this vast ecosystem of partners. They really bring in very specific capabilities and understanding of markets. And that's where players like Logik.io come in. They are very, they have domain expertise in this space. They built configuration products. So we have a very open ecosystem type of mindset when we are developing these products. Every day in Salesforce, one of the things that as I'm thinking of developing our roadmap and our product plan, we are sitting down and making these decisions of whether we should build something internally, whether we should go buy something else externally to plug in the holes, or third, we should partner. And I'm pretty happy to say that one of the great partners that we have had especially on this complex configuration space, is Logik IO, because I think they bring in significant capabilities in this space, and super excited about what Chris and the team have been doing on this platform to add value. And really, this strategy that I'm alluding to is driven based on what we hear from our customers. Our customers want choice, and we want to offer them that choice so that they can continue to evolve their digital transformation journeys. And one of the things you'll hear from Dan is how he's adapted to that choice model that we have offered to continue to kind of enhance his side of revenue operations. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Chris, who will walk us through how they arrived at building this great product on Salesforce. Chris?
Yeah, thanks, Ashut, and thanks everyone for joining today. I'd like to give you a little bit of background, my personal background, and then also we'll talk about the Logik IO platform and the product and how it works specifically with the Salesforce data model. And as Ashut was just touching on, my background, I founded Big Machines in 2000 with Godard, and he and I built that business up over the course of about a decade. And then in 2013, we sold Big Machines to Oracle. And then I worked for Oracle for a number of years, helping them move Big Machines onto the Fusion platform, which then became Oracle CPQ Cloud. And then concurrently with that, Godard acquired SteelBrick, and then later built that into Salesforce Revenue Cloud, and then Salesforce acquired that. And then in 2020, about 2 years ago, I had actually been retired from Oracle. And Godard and I started talking to Salesforce about product configuration and some of the requirements that the Salesforce Revenue Cloud team and Manufacturing Cloud teams were seeing in the market. And we found that there still was a big opportunity to take advanced product configuration to the next level and apply kind of our lessons learned from building Big Machines to create a high-performance product configurator that runs on the Salesforce data model, but then allows customers to really do a lot of things that they need to address some of those modern selling challenges that Ashut just talked about, because this is still, frankly, a very difficult problem for companies to solve. And that was part of the foundation for us creating Logik IO and partnering very closely with Salesforce to do that. We also found that there were a couple of trends happening that manufacturers were wanting to do and frankly having to deal with in the market as we went through this. And the first was that, on the left here, was that buyers and CPQ users are getting more and more demanding every day. And this is an interesting trend that's happening where they're requiring, near perfect experiences in their daily lives when it comes to doing these complex commercial transactions around manufacturing. And this is just simply kind of a natural extension of, all of us and our buying behaviors in the B2C market that we do today. Just to give you a simple kind of example, like if you were to use Amazon and it took 3, 4, 5 seconds to get search results, all of us in our personal B2C buying, we would stop using Amazon. And that expectation level, that usability expectation that a lot of buyers have grown to want in their B2C buying has started to move into these complex manufacturing B2B transactions. And it creates a lot of challenge on the technology and the tools to be able to address that. The second thing on the right that we saw in the market when we started Logik IO is that companies were more and more wanting to sell solutions and not bundles of parts. And so what a lot of CPQ tools and product configuration tools were doing and are still doing, frankly, is they're presenting to their users, here is essentially a bag of parts, and I'll tell you if the parts fit together or not. And that is a very different selling situation than going into a customer and saying, what's your problem? And here's our solution to it, which is often a combination of products, services, software. And you'll hear Dan talk about this a minute at Keysight. It's a big part of their digital transformation. And so when you get into this concept of selling these complex solutions, the demand on the tools gets even higher because the configuration relationships get more complicated. The performance of the tool tends to get really stressed because of that. And you need to think about configuration differently than just simply a bill of material configurator or a product bundler. Just simply won't meet that use case. And so these two trends, combined with those initial discussions that we had with Salesforce around this modern selling requirements, particularly manufacturing, was really the impetus for founding Logik.io. And we also found that, why is there still an opening in the market for a technology to do this? And if you look at what's required to do, to really create this concept of modern selling, there's a number of challenges specifically in the product configuration space that make it quite difficult. One is that the configuration challenge itself can be massive. So it's not uncommon, even for something that might be a relatively straightforward product with maybe 100 options or 50 options, you might end up with thousands of rules, thousands of functions that are needed to actually fully specify all aspects of that product, to fully manufacture it, and create a bill of material and a routing to do that. And the configuration problem actually gets complicated very fast. And that's a big challenge, which causes particularly performance issues in a lot of existing tools. The second thing on here is that there's a trend happening in the market, which is that something that would traditionally be a CPQ transaction that might be assisted with a distributor, a reseller, or a direct sales rep, those transactions are migrating to a self-service experience. And that self-service experience that migration is happening very quickly. And there's a couple ways to think about that. One, in the traditional sense, is that you could take a product that's configurable, put it into an e-commerce experience, with Salesforce Commerce Cloud, and transact directly with your end customer. But there's other ways to do that. For example, allowing your customers to go to your website, do complex guided selling easily, actually start to pre-configure the product for their needs, and then submit that as a lead into Salesforce, and then have your inside sales team, direct sales team, or distributors then follow up with those leads. And that is a pretty complex technical challenge that a lot of these companies want to do as a step into Omni-Channel, but the current solutions can't do that easily. And that was one of the key design criteria we had for Logik.io when we built the technology. The third one here is probably one of the biggest hindrances to a lot of modern selling with CPQ tools, and that is the administration and maintenance gets very tedious and difficult. And frankly, this was one of the things that we struggled with at Big Machines over the years. As we built more and more capability into the product, the maintenance of the tool got quite complex. And with Logik.io, we're able to sort of reset, do a version 2.0 of advanced product configuration, and really think carefully about administration and really build it so that your Salesforce administrator can maintain these product configuration relationships inside of Logik.io. And then the last one is something that is a really strong trend that's been happening for over a decade, and that is that companies want to put all of this product configuration technology and capability into Salesforce and do it on the Salesforce platform using the Salesforce data model. And that allows you to do a lot of the things that Shoot was just talking about, where you want to manage, for example, rebates, do complex revenue management, and really energize the modern selling experience. If your CPQ tool is a data island off platform, those capabilities are very difficult to do. And in theory, yes, you could stitch everything together with middleware, but over time, we all know that that's a complex thing to do and maintain, and it does slow down the innovation rate of your company to introduce new products to do that. So these were some of the core, 4 big challenges we thought about as we designed the Logik.io platform, specifically for Salesforce. And what we did was we came up with a technology we call the Commerce Logic Engine, and we specifically designed it to be complementary with Salesforce manufacturing and revenue clouds. So what we do is we solely address the configuration problem. So the workflow, the pricing, the quoting, all of that functionality stays with the core revenue cloud applications that work with manufacturing cloud. And we really look specifically at the product configuration problem and taking that to the next level in terms of maintainability, performance, complex relationships, guided selling, and then allowing you to do a true omni-channel configuration experience. And so the Commerce Logic Engine really handles a couple of different aspects for your business. It's a dedicated rules engine that governs all the recommendations, the guided selling, complex functions, bill of material rules that you need to build your products. And what that does is that helps you sell more, sell faster, and we also like to say maintain less. And a lot of the companies that we're working with, Keysight is one of those included that Dan will touch on here in a minute. They're finding that as they move on to the Commerce Logic engine from Logik.io, the maintenance liability is reduced drastically from their current systems. And that brings a ton of ROI to their business to free up those people to do more advanced selling experiences, add more products faster, and really be flexible to respond to the market. Now, specifically, a couple of things that we built into the product to deliver these enhanced capabilities for our customers. The first thing that we wanted to do was to take performance of the application itself to the next level. So one of the key criteria we had when we founded Logik.io a couple of years ago was that we wanted to create almost like a video game-like experience for CPQ and e-commerce capabilities. So we wanted the performance to not go from 3 seconds to 1 second. We wanted the performance to go from 3 seconds to 25 milliseconds and eliminate the need for an update button, a save button, a waiting icon that spins to tell the user the system is thinking. All of those things go away. The interaction that the users have with the system is near instantaneous. And this allows you to do a couple things. One is it makes your CPQ users a much more enjoyable experience. It allows you to put these complex product configuration scenarios and capabilities into your e-commerce engine and give your customers and your channel partners a near Amazon-like experience for their product configuration. And it really allows you to rethink the way that you ask your customers to interact with your configuration engine. You can really think differently about how you sell your product. So a lot of companies that we worked with over the last couple of decades, we would actually change the interaction design of the configurator to account for performance problems. So now you don't have to do that. You can actually allow your customers to move sliders, change all different attributes, do a lot of what-if scenarios instantaneously, and it allows you to iterate much more quickly to converge on a really awesome buying experience and really get the best product fit for your customer. The other thing we did is we built the Logik.io configurator to be completely a headless architecture. And what this allows you to do is take the core product configuration engine and then syndicate it throughout your business and use it in many different ways. So the most common use case is customers take the Logik.io engine, they put the Lightning React UI components on top of it, and they use it inside of Salesforce CPQ Revenue Cloud. And it looks, and behaves and runs natively on Salesforce. And so it's a completely seamless experience with the Lightning UI components. And then the second most popular use case with the headless architecture is our customers take that same engine and then they build a dedicated e-commerce UI on top of it so that the rules engine looks just like your corporate website. It has all of your corporate branding, all of your typical selling branded collateral look and feel, but it uses the exact same rules engine. And this solves a huge challenge that a lot of existing manufacturers had that we noticed when we started Logik.io is that they would actually have multiple product configurators depending on the use case in their business. And now you can take Logik.io and syndicate it into your CPQ experience on Salesforce, your Commerce Cloud experience with Salesforce. You could put it into Service Cloud if you want. You can connect it directly to your corporate website to do guided selling. And you can do it all with a common rules engine, which is really exciting. And it's really the first time that capability has been seamlessly brought to market. And then the last thing that we put a lot of work into with the Logik.io configurator is this concept of maintenance. And we knew that a lot of the existing product configuration tools that have evolved over the last 20 years, that the maintenance for complex products can actually be quite involved. And more importantly, in a lot of cases, you have to hire specialized folks to do that, which is a huge burden for a lot of organizations to do that. And it also makes an experience where if you have to replace people or augment a team, it's very difficult for the new team members to understand what's going on inside the tool. And so we spend more than half of our R&D engineering budget on improving the maintainability every day of the Logik I/O solution. And we had a big advantage in being able to do this a second time. We learned a lot the first time, and actually understanding what it takes to create an administration module for complex configuration that can be done by a Salesforce administrator with the exact same Salesforce UI that's used to maintain accounts, opportunities, and other relationships inside of Salesforce. A couple of key components we built into this. One is a concept of what we call blueprints. This allows you to define products in one place and then use them across multiple configurators, so you don't have to maintain the same data in multiple places inside the engine. We also developed this thing we call a matrix loader, which allows you to seamlessly load rules, functions, options, data tables, even the UI from Google Sheets or an Excel document. So it's very easy to do a migration from an existing tool into Logik I/O. And everything we do in admin, we make it accessible through this loader that you can run from Google Sheets or Excel. Another thing we did is we created this concept of flight path, which is a diagnostic tool that allows you to look at while you're running the configurator, and you can actually see how the rules are interacting with each other. So if you have a concept like different functions are interacting and setting the one after it or before it, or two functions are merging together to create a simultaneous value, you can easily see that with a flight path diagram. And it allows you to do very simple debugging of actually what's happening inside the rules engine. And then the last thing we did is visual rule management. So one of the things that we noticed over the years is that admins really struggle figuring out where they are in a particular data model. And so one of the things we built from the beginning in Logik I/O is the ability to bring up the data model and see it visually. So if you have hundreds of rules, hundreds of attributes or options, you can easily pinpoint where you are in the model and what needs to be modified to do like a maintenance update or a change in the system. So maintainability is a really critical part of everything we do when we think about helping our customers with the solution. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Dan. Dan's the CIO of Keysight Technologies, one of our live customers we're super excited to be working with. It's a great business, and Dan will give you a ton of detail on their success with Logik I/O.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Hey, and by the way, I'm happy you've come out of retirement. You know, when Michael Jordan came out of retirement, he went on to win 3 more championships. And that's what you're doing here with Logik. You're winning championships. It's great to have you working with us on this, because we definitely have a need. What some of the cool technology you talked about, whether that's the headless architecture, the solving engine, the commerce logic engine. What I'm going to talk to the rest of you about today is why. Why does that matter to Keysight? So to do that, I've got to unpack a little bit of, well, what is the Keysight box? What are we? Where do we come from? Where are we headed? And so it might surprise some of you to learn that we actually are the original Hewlett-Packard. So we trace our heritage back to Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard and their focus on electronic measurement products way back from the 1930s. It wasn't until the 90s that we decided to split the company and have HP continue on the computer business, and everything that was not computer related become Agilent. Well, we repeated that same story in 2014 when Agilent stayed focused on life sciences solutions, and we spun off Keysight to become a standalone independent company focused on electronic measurement products. But we quickly decided that just focusing on those traditional products that we had for many years, very profitable, but not growing, we decided our focus actually is going to become a growth company, and a new strategy had to emerge to make that happen. And that strategy is concentrated around transitioning from these discrete physical hardware products to a software-centric solution strategy, one where we combine some of our leading-edge hardware and high-performance hardware with unique software combined with services bundled together and moving to the right of the value chain from not just providing hardware measurement and probes, which is still very important and critical to many of our customers, but giving more analysis and more insight and the ability for customers as they're innovating to do reporting and decision. We've even began to pivot into operations and optimizations and combining all this together. So shifting the product strategy to a solution strategy was the first change we made as we became independent in 2014. The second change we made was to think about what industries we wanted to focus on. So rather than just have a portfolio of products and then just build it and hope that everyone would come and use them. We decided let's concentrate on 6 markets. One was just general electronics as a market. Then the other 5 are listed here: commercial communications, semiconductors, automotive and energy, aerospace and defense, and then IoT. And so in these spaces, for example, commercial communications, that's everything from wireless to wired, from telecommunications to the backbones of hyperscaler cloud providers. Semiconductors, we're working with the leading edge semiconductor companies, taking us all down to the sub-nanometer transistor size. We're working on 5 nanometer down to 1 nanometer and eventually past that. The automotive and energy, I'm going to double click on in a minute. Aerospace and defense has a lot of electronics and modernization efforts across that space, even working with organizations like NASA and their pursuit of the Orion spacecraft to help it safely pursue its goals. IoT, it's smart everything out there, everything's connected. And so these are the 5 markets that we put a lot of energy into focusing on. But to illustrate the company strategy in action, let me double click on the automotive space and just in particular one segment. And by the way, automotive is one of our smaller but growing markets we focus on. But I want to illustrate why it's so important for us to be partnering with Salesforce and Logik. This is the example of the e-mobility ecosystem, basically the electrification of cars. And there's so many different components in this value chain, from the charging stations on the left to how they source their energy from the grid, to how they interact with the vehicle. Within the vehicle itself, a number of different components that really need to be designed, validated, and tested, to the source of those components and how they are properly manufactured. So when we look at that particular ecosystem and then we layer in and say, now what sort of problems are you as an automotive customer having, and how can we bring unique, complex products to combined with software and services to help solve your problem? And this slide illustrates around the ecosystem these various new products that we've brought to market. Each one of these products listed on this page has hundreds, if not thousands, of customer configurable options. And then when you combine that to these thousands of lines in the bill of materials for that product, the ability to dynamically configure for our sales teams, for even our customers to interact with, became an intractable problem. But just picture each one of these hundreds of options, and as customers configure and choose different standards that they would like to test and validate, choose different configurations, each one of those firing off different rules to tweak what are the different dependencies of the product. This just illustrates a handful of those products. Some of these products, by the way, are the size of a vehicle itself. Some are very small and are used within the vehicle to test. Each one of these very complicated in terms of its scope for what we needed to do. So thinking about the digital journey we are on, so that's the background of Keysight in terms of its strategy as a company. Again, moving from hardware products to software-centric solutions focused on fast-moving 5 markets for us. And when we think about our journey on the left, what we want to try to enable is a digitally enabled business outcome. We're trying to unify 2 things: the online customer experience, which really accelerated from the pandemic. We have a direct sales organization very used to very in-person interactions, and we had to force ourselves to embrace an online customer engagement, as all of you had to embrace as well. But then internally, the operations, from product development to the sales motion to the delivery of those ordered products to the ongoing service, because you don't just sell these once. They do take a lot of ongoing calibration, repair, and service, to the value capture. That's an integrated value chain. We wanted to try to bring those 2 worlds together. And our previous architecture, pictured on the right, just was not going to scale. So this is what we inherited from Agilent when we spun off in 2014. It's very much monolithic systems in an on-prem architecture. That's not going to work for us, not going to cut it. So what we moved to was a cloud-first composable architecture. So you see the same goals on the left, those digitally enabled business outcomes, but where we're at today is one where our Oracle ERP still is the nucleus of our operation. So we still have that global monolithic system, but we've begun to skinny it down and skinny down that ERP. In particular, one of the things that we took out of the ERP was product configuration. We first started working with Chris when he was with Big Machines, and we took it out of our Oracle EBS system, partnered with Big Machines to stand up the CPQ system. And there was great excitement and enthusiasm from our sales organization, because until that point, their sales motion was show up at a customer, talk to them, take copious notes, go back, fill out an email, and send it to a configuration specialist. Because using Oracle ERP to do product configuration required like a PhD in product configuration. Days later, the sales team would finally get a quote back from those configuration specialists, days, and then say, all right, customer, is this what you were talking about? Invariably, the customer would say, yeah, but I'd like to tweak that one little option. Here we go again, repeat the cycle, days, turnaround time. So iteration number two, or number one on our cloud-first composable architecture, take the configuration logic out of our ERP, use big machines, and our sales team cheering like crazy. We're going to get turnaround time within hours instead of days, and great fanfare and excitement. But as Chris talked about, the consumer performance experience that we all get on Amazon and other cloud providers is not hours. It's not even minutes. It could be microseconds to seconds. And so what became a very popular solution soon became unpopular as the sales organization demanded faster and faster turnaround time on these super complex configurations. In fact, just a few months ago, I was at our annual sales event, 1,500 direct sellers from our sales organization, all gathered in Las Vegas, first time in several years. But just picture a room of 1,500 people, and they know the CIO is in the audience, and the head of sales gets up, and the first thing he announces in the keynote address is that, ladies and gentlemen, we are moving to a new configurator engine. Round of applause. Everyone's cheering like crazy. We're going to get product configurations in seconds, not hours, like we've been dealing with. Amazing how productivity of the sales team is becoming so critical. So our composable architecture, the beauty of it is the ability to take pieces of it and quickly pivot and add new components to the architecture. And so that's what we did. We just went live with on our Salesforce Sales Cloud, integrated with Logik.io, and brought online the first batch of our products in the Logik Modern Configurator. So the objectives that we had was not just that sales productivity. You can see this, one of the third bullets there, driving selling productivity. And the sales team, it's fine if they think that that's what our driving force is all about, is to help them be more productive, because it is one of our goals. But we actually have a higher goal than that. We're trying to unify the online customer experience with the internal sales experience and bridge that divide, and trying to think about exposing to our customers through an e-commerce engine the complexity of our products and the complexity of configuration. In the previous platforms that we had, is never going to scale, never going to work for us. But now what we're planning to do, and have gone live with our first batch of products, it's equally, as Chris was mentioning, the single place to configure, both available to our internal sales team and our external customers. Because of the headless architecture, we can actually expose that to both online customers and internal sales teams, leveraging the exact same configuration engine. So that's what we've done, is united that. It's live at this point, with iterations to come of more products that we migrate into the Logik configuration engine. The previous state, as I was talking about, very complex, very slow. I talked a little bit about the pain points. We're live now, as I mentioned, with about 3,000 of our 9,000 products, with more to come. A lot of improvement in the user experience, both for the sales teams, but also in particular for my own team in IT. This is a amazingly more advanced system, and by advanced, not hard to use, easier to use. And in particular, developing some tools to help with the migration on the Force platform has been great. The other piece too is some of the improvements that we're making for what we call product configuration specialists. So every one of these products that we sell out of the R&D labs, there's a product configuration specialist whose job is to take all the different options and componentry and put that into the rules of the system. We have a whole group of people that have been tasked full time. That's what they do on our old configurator. And they've been trained up on this new platform. They find it significantly more efficient and easier for them to define those rules in terms of their configurations. And so for them, that the maintenance part that Chris was talking about, true to form, it actually is so much easier for us to maintain. That we're expecting to be able to continue to scale and grow Keysight at the pace we've been growing without having to increase that organization that continues to do the product configurations. They're going to be able to increase their productivity pretty substantially at that point. In fact, just to share some of the performance improvements that we've seen, 40% reduction in the quoting time for our sellers, and that's just without much effort to optimize the performance. Our main focus has just been transition to the new platform. And immediately we're already seeing 40% improvement for the frontline sellers that are using the system. We had not exposed our product configuration engine to our external customers because it was just too slow. It's already live and exposed, and customers are interacting with it real time. But for the maintenance side, 80% reduction that we see, that's a combination of the IT team that manages the systems and those product configuration specialists who write the rules for our product configurations. So right now, they would be quick to say we have not had a reduction in our effort because they're in the process of migrating all of their configurations. But they can see light at the end of the tunnel so that once they finish the migration to the new system, they're kind of asking, well, now what? Now what do we work on? Well, in particular, Keysight's been an acquisitive company. We've been in an acquiring spree and acquiring companies and integrating them into our core systems. Every time we would acquire a company, these product configuration specialists would have to pause what they were working on in terms of new product introductions, pivot over to work on the complex data entry of the configurations for the acquired company's products as they moved into our architecture. Now we are able to actually continue to do new product introductions at the same time organically as we add more acquired companies into our portfolio. So it's just going to enable us to accelerate our growth as a company for our customers. So that's a quick snapshot, a lot that I covered in terms of our heritage, where we've been, the background we've been through, why we're working with both Salesforce and Logik in that composable architecture, unifying the online customer experience with the internal operations to a consumer grade level of digital experience that everyone's come to expect these days, and making some progress there. Now, I know we've gotten some questions coming in, so let me turn it over to our next speaker, and then I look forward to getting some questions thrown my way so I can add some more light and color to our Salesforce and Logik journey.
Hi, Dan. Thanks so much. Yes, we have a first question here from an attendee. It says, Keysight Nucleus is still Oracle ERP Business Suite. What was the prime decision to go with Salesforce rather than Oracle for organizational sales? And two, was there issues faced connecting Salesforce to ERP? And then they ask about the timeline for the transition.
Got it, Bill. Yeah, so that's a great question. So we actually did a real side-by-side comparison. We typically do this in any of our key architectural decisions, run an RFP. We do a lot of proof of concept. We just found that the Salesforce experience integrated seamlessly with our ERP and the sales organization itself. We involve our user community when we are making an IT decision. And when we had them kick the tires and try out the Salesforce platform versus the Oracle equivalent of their Sales Cloud, just a significant amount of positive feedback from the sales organization around the user experience on Sales Cloud with that. So largely it came down to a user experience decision for that. Being able to do the integration between the platforms was not that difficult. We actually have an integration platform that we use that ties together all of our composable architecture. So the dozens and dozens of different cloud systems that we have, a lot of it's Salesforce, by the way. We've continued to build out with Service Cloud is another example. We're in the process of implementing Revenue Cloud. But we have other areas where Salesforce doesn't have any offerings at this point. And so those cloud environments all integrated with our ERP through a cloud integration system for that. So then the question, I think the second question of this was, are there issues faced connecting? So not anything unusual compared to what you normally would see. In terms of the timeline for the transformation, I'm not sure what So I can just elaborate on the history we've been on. So the implementation of Sales Cloud and initially with Oracle CPQ and big machines, that was back in 2017 and 18. What we've been on most recently with Logik, we started talking with Chris just a year ago, and here we are live, already on the new configurator with over a third of our products migrated. So the transformation that we've been on this time around, moving to the new configurator, is significantly faster from concept to being live within 1 year. The previous time we tried to move out of our configurations, out of our ERP into big machines, that was a 2.5-year journey. So we're getting faster because the platforms are getting better.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate that. I've got another question. We're going to stick with the ERP integration here for a minute. And Chris, this may call out to you. The question comes in, says, did you modernize your core ERP as product configuration depends on PIM and MDM?
Yeah, so we actually implemented both of those. We put in a product information management system, a PIM, as we modernized our cloud environment. So just let me go back on the slides and bring up an architecture diagram, kind of might shed some light. So when you look at the diagram on the left, what we're trying to accomplish to what we had, so the Oracle EBS, and remember we had an on-premise web farm as well. That was in our legacy architecture. And so we actually were doing both at the same time. As we skinnied down the ERP, we moved to the cloud in terms of our entire web environment as well, and implemented a PIM for that web transition. We also implemented a master data management system that helps tie together the data structures across all of these composable cloud components.
Thank you for that. Chris, anything you want to add there?
No, I don't have anything to add. That was a good answer, Dan.
All right. So we'll go, there was a question came in about e-commerce. What's next for e-commerce? Would a customer ever consider full service on your complex products? And kind of more generally, what's your long-term vision?
Yeah, so with these, you can see these lightning bolts that I've got connecting basically from on the diagram from the e-commerce cloud into our sales cloud and tying that together. So right now, the Logik configurator is providing us with quoting. So we're basically generating quotes for customers. They can turn around and then have a dialogue with their sales team. The long-term strategy, and by long-term I mean just a few months from now, actually, because we're moving so fast, is to actually convert that to not just doing quotes, but to actual transactions. And very good point. It's probably not going to be the massive, car-sized battery simulating systems that could cost you $500,000 that they're going to swipe a credit card and buy online. That's probably not going to be the first move on our e-commerce. It's going to be more of our lower end general electronics type of products. Remember, I talked about 5 markets we were focused on for growth, but the underpinning all of that is the general electronics market. And we have thousands of products in that space. We typically have sold along with our partners, and those are all available in e-commerce. And each of those also have some configuration logic. That's going to be our first move to expose the configurability and then transact right there from our e-commerce engine and make and conduct those product purchases. Secondly, our software products, along with the services that are bundled with it. I'm not sure we're going to end up with these complex $1 million solutions that customers are going to actually want to transact entirely humanless online. It's possible, but I think that when you get to that scale, a lot of our customers really appreciate the opportunity to talk to our sales organization and really understand the problem they're trying to solve and make sure that we've got all the right components. It's less about the configurability of a product, but it's the variety of components of products that can be brought to bear in a uniquely bundled solution to solve that customer's problem. Oftentimes, a customer problem is unique, and a solution to it actually requires quite a bit of engineering thought to combine all those components.
Thanks. The next question, I'm going to try and aggregate a few questions here, but there's questions around how did you tackle the migration and what are the tools used for migrating your current configurators from big machines into Logik.io?
Dan,
that's. Chris, you want to take a little bit of that to start with, and I can add some other color?
Yeah, we've been working very closely with Dan's team over the last couple months to do this. So I can speak to this. So Dan has a very clever IT group that is capable. They've been maintaining a lot of very sophisticated tools over the years. And one of the things that we looked at, we actually spent the first probably 4 to 5 months of our work with Keysight actually finishing the development of the core Logik.io platform. And then we started implementing their products into it about 4 or 5 months ago. And one of the things we did is we designed the admin around some of the challenges that they would see kind of day to day. And much like the way the user side of the app is headless, the administration of Logik.io can also be headless. So anything that you can do in the admin in Salesforce, you can also do with a service call or an API call into Logik.io. And so what Dan's team did was they actually set up a bunch of data loader functions that they created on the Salesforce platform that actually download data from big machines. They do a little bit of data transformation from standard big machines objects. And then they invoke the Logik.io APIs from the Salesforce platform to load all the features, rules, data tables, UI, and other functions that are needed in Logik.io. And so what's interesting is just last week, in 1 week, a handful of people at Keysight migrated 300 models. And so with this automation, they've actually found that the data can be moved pretty quickly from one system to another. And we're actually working with a number of manufacturers that are seeing a similar result set for doing the migration. So there's a big advantage to having an existing system, whether it's big machines or some other CPQ tool, and then taking that data, running the APIs, and then loading it into Logik.io. And if you don't have the team to build the sophistication that Keysight has to automate this, because they have nearly 10,000 products to move, all with their own product structures and bills of material and routings and things. You can simply do this too with Google Sheets and Excel sheets, and it still greatly speeds up the data migration process.
Yeah, and one of the things that some of these tools that we've been developing for the migration, potentially we can talk you, Chris, into productizing, take some of those and continue to add, because you've got, like you said, you've got a fantastic team developing the system maintenance tool sets. And I would imagine over time, some of those transition tools you're probably going to incorporate into your portfolio.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it, rightfully so, a lot of companies, especially manufacturers, because they tend to have the biggest challenges, but, they're a little bit product configuration shell-shocked, frankly, because this has been such a difficult process for them over the years, from, perhaps moving from Siebel to the EBS configurator, maybe the variant configurator, SAP, et cetera. And those are always, very time-consuming, expensive, risky projects. But I think that time is gone. And so a lot of the stuff that we're doing in the market today is showing our customers how, those migrations don't have to be difficult and risky and expensive.
Awesome, thanks. I think we have time for one last question, and I think this will tie back kind of into what Ashut was talking about, but I think it's directed at Dan here. It's how did the transformation affect your partner-driven engagement?
Yeah, so the partner engagement is one where typically our partners are partnering with us on those general electronics products. And so the partnership we have with them is focused in particular on kind of a joint go-to-market on both. They've got online capabilities for their offerings, as well as leveraging our growing level of online expertise that they don't have to actually continue to navigate that themselves. In particular, what we used to publish with our partners was a static catalog that obviously within the matter of weeks or a month would be out of date. And so they're very much looking forward to having a much more real-time type of engagement with our existing catalog of capabilities, rather than always having a static kind of always behind and out of date portfolio view of us. So that's going to be the key thing. It's basically just going to help our partners move to a much more real-time type of engagement with their customers, leveraging us on the back end.
Awesome. Dan, I think we're at the end of the time here. I just want to say for us here at Salesforce, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to our customers and prospects about this. Chris, always a pleasure to work with you and your team, and thank you for your contributions here. Ashut, we always appreciate your support as we get out and talk about where we're headed as a company with our partners and our customers. So thank you very much to everyone on the call.
Thank
and
you.
to our participants that have taken the time to spend the time with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, everybody. All right.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.